So, I wanted to just go quickly through the setup process of an RBRsolo data logger. In this case, it's the RBRsolo PAR sensor. And first you start with the RBRglobal.com webpage that you see here. And at the moment they have it under products, software, and here you can download their software Ruskin, which is for programming and downloading the loggers. And I downloaded the version for the PC, and it looks like this. So you need to open the program first and then make the physical connection with your data logger, which I did right now. So now you see it's actually finding the device by itself. That's pretty neat. And then we have a few options here. If you want to check that the logger is actually recording, or the sensor is actually recording meaningful data, you can go down here to this field with the graph, and you can actually click this little play button here, start collecting, show live data, and then we will see how it's actually delivering us live data. So this data, it's collected with the battery power, so it's not powered by the USB, and that means you don't want to let it run for too long, but in this case the battery life is pretty long, so it doesn't matter. Also, when I lay my hand on it, you see this is a light sensor, it drops immediately. So that's pretty nice. Before you make any further adjustments, you need to stop this live view again, because otherwise it might give you some trouble. The sampling is actually based on the sampling that was saved on the logger from before that you see up here, but we will get to that in a moment. So now I stop the live data view. There we go. Now here you see what kind of sensor or what kind of logger you're actually programming. The status is not enabled, so the logger is currently not logging any data. I want to check the clock, and here it says the logger time lags the computer time by 1.362 seconds. And then you have the option to actually sync it to your computer's time, either putting it into UTC or putting it into local time. So in my case, +2, that's the local time. I want to log in local time, and then I just have a look. Yeah, it is about right. I have actually synced this clock just half an hour ago or so. So I think these 1.3 seconds is just it's just normal. It's just a delay between the computer communicating with the microcontroller and the logger. Here we have a start time setting, and if this was a sensor that would only run for example 41 days, I would actually want to use this, but then triple check that it's the correct date and the correct time set here. So then the logger would just be asleep until this starting point comes, and then start logging according to the sampling parameters that you set. Now in this case we are definitely not sampling at 2 Hertz. We're probably gonna be sampling at like once every 10 seconds, and then the battery life is so long that it actually doesn't matter if I start it now. So I really want to start it as soon, like logging as soon as I hit the enable button down here. And that's basically what this tick box does. It simply says, okay, start logging as soon as you hit the enable button. No programmed start time that could be off or anything like that. And then based on the sampling parameters, it actually gives me a prediction of the battery life and the memory. And it highlights which of the two is the bottleneck. So in this case, it's the battery. The battery is highlighted green. It only will run for 41.9 days, whereas the memory would actually be sufficient for 722 days. And the logging automatically ends when either the memory is full or when the battery is empty, obviously. So the estimated end of sampling would be, in this case, the 28th of July 2020. And this is actually based, the battery reading is actually, the battery prediction is actually based on the true battery reading according to the chemistry that is set down here. So you want to check what kind of battery you have in there. In this case, it is indeed a lithium-ion battery. And based on that chemistry, the current voltage that the logger is measuring, it says at this sampling rate it will be finished at that time span. There is a tick box down here saying fresh. You would only use that if you were going to replace the battery right before deployment with a fresh battery, because then this reading will not take into account the actual voltage of the battery. It would base its prediction on using a fresh battery. Of course, you should take these values with a grain of salt, because temperature actually influences battery life, and also not every battery is exactly according to what this program thinks how it's going to be. So I've already talked about this power box down here, and then here under sampling, in our case, I can only sample continuously, and currently the tick box rate is enabled. And then I can choose between a rate, in this case 1 Hertz or 2 Hertz, but that's not what we want. I want to sample in an interval, so I can choose an interval here, and according to my battery life predictions and the resolution of data that we need, I will actually choose 10 seconds. So this is hours, minutes, seconds. And now it's set to 10 seconds, and you see it updates the readings down here immediately. So now it says, according to the battery that's currently installed, the lithium-ion battery, it will run for 536 days. That is absolutely sufficient. There is also more than 10 years of memory available, so that's perfect. And now I can basically hit the enable button. The contents of memory will be erased. Erase and enable logging. Thank you very much. And now you see immediately the status changes to logging in process, and the memory starts running up. In this moment it's less than 1% used. Now we also got a stop button here in case that we, for example, get it out of the water and will want to stop sampling. Under information, just as the button says, you can find some information about your logger. It's an RBRsolo 3 logger, late 17 generation, serial number, firmware, and how it's connected. Down here you see how the system is currently powered and how much voltage you have on the battery. Here in the channels box you see what kind of sensors are currently connected. So in this case a power sensor with these units and so on. Calibration, this is set, and you should not do anything here without actually knowing what you're doing. And maybe talking to the company, to RBR. So yeah, I think that was everything you have to know about how to program one of these RBR loggers.